Hey guys, Jeff at Hubie's Garage. I just wanted to talk a little bit about another project that we're going to get back on, and that is the 55 street car. This is my 55 Bel Air two-door sedan. Bought this car when I was 15 years old, and this pretty much, aside from Howie's hardtop that I wrenched on when I was real young and rode around as a kid, this was the first 55 that I bought, and I still happen to own it today. Gosh, 30 some odd years later. The plan with this one is I just want to get it running and drivable again. I'm not going to do anything major to it. I just want to go through and do some of the things for it that need to be done as far as a car that's been sitting in the garage for a long time and hasn't run. Wanted to change out the carburetor because the carburetor's been sitting for some time. It did not have the correct carburetor on it. Actually, it had the original carburetor on it when this engine was in Howie's hardtop. But when we ran this car at the drags for all those years, I had a borrowed Holley 650 double pumper, and that carburetor that I borrowed from a coworker, I actually had my best time at the drag strip with that carburetor. So I bought another one, and I'm going to go ahead and rebuild it. And you'll get to see, go through the technical side of rebuilding the double pumper. And then I'm also going to go through the master cylinder. Now, it's a single master cylinder, the original factory Tri-5 master cylinder. You know, they've been on these cars for years. And I think of all the times that I've taken this car down the drag strip with just a single master cylinder, you know, it would be smart to put a dual master cylinder on it, even to put front disc brakes on it at some point. But right now, I'm not going to do that. I've got tons of parts. I've got a master cylinder rebuild kit. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean this one up. And I've got new wheel cylinders for it. I've got new tires for it. So I'll polish out the wheels, put the tires on it, then we'll do the carburetor as a separate segment by itself as far as how to rebuild a Holley double pumper. But, you know, this is the car. This is the original car. This is the one that I mowed a lot of lawns to buy. My dad helped me out in buying this one. You know, he was there with me when I bought it, and it's one of those family heirlooms that's never going to leave the family. I mean, this is the car that really started it for me, and is the one that held all my attention for all those years. The historical gasser was bought later on because of the fact that this car, I was racing it too much, or racing it to the point where, and putting parts on it to go faster, and it just got to the point where the car just wasn't streetable anymore. So I decided to go out and get another 55 and make that a drag race only car, while I kept this as my street rod, hot rod, you know, whatever I needed it to be. But just something to have to putt around and fart around on the street with. And this car has been exactly that. So that's what I want to get back to. I want to get it redone, get it running again, get it mechanically sound, so I could take it out and drive it on the street again. So come on along, and at some point we'll do a full walk around when I get the car done. But yeah, that's it. So let's get going on it. Okay, so I got the old master cylinder out of the 55, the Bel Air two-door sedan. Went ahead and cracked open the end cap just so I can take a look at it, because what I had done is, on this rebuildable core that I've stripped and gotten all ready to rebuild, I just only had a couple of parts left over from it, and I didn't remember the schematic offhand. I could look up the factory service manual, which I have, but I just decided to crack open the old one and just make sure that all the parts that I have, because I've got two kits here. I've got a new old stock one that's a made in USA, and a new one. Believe it or not, both of these are from Ray Bestis, so, but I'm probably going to use the new old stock one. The spring is heavier. Just all around it's a better built part. So you can see in this one that the piston, which basically, we're looking at it, the back of it right here, where the brake rod from under the firewall goes. That piston is frozen. I've tried pushing on it and moving it, but it's frozen in place. So probably could have moved it using the brake pedal, but you know, obviously there's so much crud in this thing that tearing it apart and rebuilding it was definitely the way to go. Or rebuilding a new core is definitely the way to go. We're going to go ahead and strip, or I should say hone out the master cylinder itself and just make sure we've got a good clean surface. I'm going to go ahead and use my wheel cylinder hone. Okay, so we're going to give it a little squirt of WD-40 in there, just so it's got something to, like a cutting oil, and then we'll go ahead and got the wheel cylinder hone in there, and we'll just go ahead and give it a back and forth. I'm going to just go ahead and not a whole bunch, but just a good full stroke. About there. That should be good. It should be good enough to just get the surface clean, get rid of any pits, any rust, and with the WD-40 it looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and get a clean rag and see what that looks like. So after we ran the brake hone through it, I just went ahead and ran some brake cleaner through the port, and we're using a clean rag just to make sure that everything is, there's no dirt or debris inside there. You can see it came out pretty good. You know, 70-year-old master cylinder. There are some pits in it, but as far as the machine surface, it's definitely going to be clean enough to put a rebuild kit in it, and it actually kind of cleaned up pretty nice. So the pits aren't real bad, and I don't want to keep going to where it doesn't get a good, you know, where the cylinder wall is blown out of tolerance. So, but you can see some pits, but it should be good enough for what we're trying to do. And then we'll go ahead and we'll give it a coating of some brake fluid. So we've got some brake fluid that's coated the walls here of the honed out cylinder or master cylinder, and we'll go ahead and start assembly. Well, we're going to start by basically building the back door here, and that is the washer that fits at the back of the master cylinder, and then the retaining clip that holds it in place with the groove. So it's going to take a couple hands to do that, but we'll go ahead and get that put into place. I got the piston for the master cylinder, and I got a little bit of brake fluid that we'll go ahead and coat the seal with, and then we'll go ahead and assemble it in the master cylinder. We went ahead and coated the seal with a little bit of brake fluid, and we'll go ahead and install that inside the master cylinder. That will get pushed all the way back to the rear wall, or the washer back here. Okay, perfect. So there it is. And that's basically where the brake rod from the pedal assembly will go into that hole. Now that the piston is in the hole, we'll go ahead and put the cup inside there. Here's the 1-inch cup, so we'll go ahead and coat the sides of that with a little bit of brake fluid and then install that in the master cylinder. So we've got the cup with some fluid on the edges so that it's lubricated. It's right here at the mouth of the opening. So we're going to go ahead and use the spring assembly, the actual portion that rides inside the cup. We're going to use that and push that all the way back. Okay. And I'm pretty sure that's seated up against the piston. Just having the other one, you could see how rusted out this one got and how dirty and filthy this one got. You know, the car's sitting for 20 years. This is what's going to happen. So, but that's basically that 1-inch cup that's up against the piston towards the back of the master cylinder. The next thing we're going to do is this is the old cap, and that was from the old assembly or the old master cylinder. You could see it's got a washer, a rubber washer that fits over the stem there. This one we have the new washer with the new threaded end. That one's all ready to go. It's got a new copper gasket, basically a crush gasket that will go over the end piece of the master cylinder. So let's go ahead and thread that on. So on this one, the outer end of the cup, the end of the spring, the cup with the holes, that one rides against that big thick rubber gasket. You go ahead and push it in, get a couple of bites on the threads, and spin it down. All right, we got that copper gasket centered, and got the back end together. Everything else is together, and we just need to tighten the front of it, and it'll be ready for reassembly. One of the things that I don't really do, I've done them in the past. I have painted the master cylinders before, but brake fluid and paint obviously don't mix real well. The paint really doesn't last. I have in the past done some Imron and some of the Centauri paints. It was a little bit more durable. You know, I don't know how powder paint or something like that would hold up, but eventually brake fluid, when you get leakage around it or spillage from filling it, it eventually will eat the paint. So I'm going to go bare metal on this one, and we'll just go from there. So I need to snug down the end cap on this, but unfortunately my end wrenches only go up to 1.25 inches, and this one I'm pretty sure is it's at least 1 3/8, and I just don't have that. So I'm going to end up doing what I don't want to do, and that's using my jumbo crescent wrench. I'm not a big fan of jumbo crescent wrenches because that's probably why this original one is rounded off or rounded over, because I'm sure it was a crescent wrench that probably slipped. They don't have a good bite. Well, the crescent wrench did its job, and it went ahead and snug this down, so we'll go ahead and bolt this back up. The final topping on the master cylinder is to put the boot on, and again, I was lucky that I had a new old stock. Go ahead and slide this on, and then be ready to put it in back on the firewall. The boot's back on because it took 2 hands, and it's now ready to go get mounted back on the firewall. Okay, so I got the right rear or passenger side rear wheel cylinder off, and it actually isn't in too bad a shape until I pulled the boots off and pushed one of the plungers down, and obviously we've got some rust down inside there. It wasn't frozen, but this is what I found. So the other side, here to look at that, and it actually was pretty clean. So just for whatever reason, it just got that one side, and anyway, I went ahead and replaced it, and I've also got all the other new ones to go on each wheel. So we'll go to a brand new clean brake system, new master cylinder, new wheel cylinders, blow out the brake lines, run clean fluid through them, and then tighten everything back up, bleed them, and call it good. You can see the brake drums are off, and you can, brakes are in really nice shape. So I've got the new wheel cylinder in place, but even the brake shoes, you know, these should be an old set of Ray Bestis from a long time ago, and you can still see the gold coating on the brake shoes. All the hardware is new. This had very, very few miles on it, so all right, so got the brake drums all stripped down, used the wire wheel. I know when I did the brake job originally 25 years ago on the car, I ended up buying brand new brake drums from Danchuk, so I know these have never been turned. I know they're in good shape, but went ahead and scrubbed them, and then we're going to go ahead and give them a little rebuild in a can. So just happen to have some roll bar chassis paint. The only reason I'm using that is because of the high temp, so it's the right color. It's a matte black, and we'll just go ahead and get these things painted up so they won't rust like I found them. Okay, got the brake drums all painted up, and yeah, they look pretty good. So this should at least keep the rust off of them, and you know, they'll be looking good when you look through the wheels and are able to see the drums and you're not looking at rust. Alright, so I got the painted brake drums in place on the axle. Looking good. Well, got the U-bolts primered, and then we'll go ahead and hit them with some metallic finish afterwards. But yeah, it's probably a lot better for me to use the original U-bolts. I remember I put these in back in the 80s, and if I remember right, they were TRW brand, made in USA, sold at Danchuk. So definitely a lot better to use these, in my mind, than to use the new overseas stuff, because you don't even know what the metallurgy is. You don't know, you know, Rockwell hardness, stuff like that. This is a good U-bolt back in the day that didn't have a lot of use on it. I was the one that put it on, and here it is, restoring it and painting it again, but throwing some primer on it first. So all right, got the Rust-Oleum metallic finish paint on it, and pretty impressed with the paint. It looks really good. It kind of gives it a stainless steel look. So painted the primer and then painted the metallic paint. Anyway, we'll see how long it lasts and how it endures under the car. All right, so the rear axle bump stops, the rubber's still in pretty good shape, so I'll just clean that up a little bit. But you can see I painted these years ago, back in the 80s, and they're due for paint again. So I've already started stripping them with the wire wheel. So we'll go ahead and keep stripping these and put some more paint back on them, get them back together. All right, they're painted up. Got the rubber stops cleaned up, ready to go back on the car. Having the axle out of the locating pins for the leaf springs, and this being a stock axle, actually it's the original stock axle that came out of the car, and the new leaf springs, for some reason, they don't always line up perfectly. So my tie-down straps for the trailer are going to come in handy here, because again, I'm trying to get the pins from the leaf springs to fit into the pinholes on the perches on this stock axle. Everything's all stock location, but I just need to pull it in about ½ an inch. So this will make that happen. I just got a piece of webbing that's got a short loop and one that's a long loop, and I've got my ratchet from the trailer, and let's go ahead and pull this leaf spring in just a smidge. All right, almost there. We do one more click. All right. And that is just almost there. Just a hair. There it goes. Perfect. Dropped right in. So I can go ahead and take the tension off of the ratchet and unhook that. Undo the webbing, undo the strap, and I'm ready to put the U-bolts in. You can see I got the U-bolts in on the one side and just have to put it back in on this side. So now that the pin is in the perch, we're ready to bolt this thing down. Okay, so you can see I've got the U-bolts torqued down 45 to 55 foot-pounds. So they're all put back into place. The slapper bars are put back into place, the shocks. Went ahead and disconnected the rear axle brake lines because they were just not right. They weren't done correctly. So in the next segment, we'll go ahead and we'll build some brake lines, and then we'll go ahead and address the fuel line. That's probably going to entail putting a new fuel line in the car. So and then we'll do another segment on the carburetor. So thanks for watching. Appreciate you following along on this one, and stick around. There's lots more to come. Thanks for watching. Take care.